Easy Sports Talk Show podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Javon J. Love Adams. And with me is a man who played not only professional baseball, but also played in the National Football League in that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. And we'll get to that a little bit. Maybe we'll touch on a little bit. We shared it on our Believe podcast, but some special ceremonies going on for that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. He is a motivational speaker. He is an author. He's my brother, the one and only Ed Easy Smith. What is good, man?
Hey, what's going on, Brother Jay? Creeping into December, man. Can't believe it. Christmas right around the corner.
Right around the corner, like a bad Tupac song. All right, so let's get into this, man, because we talked about this on our we do this here 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On every Saturday, we have our terrestrial radio show from 1 to 3 Eastern on SportsMap Radio. You can go to sportsmapradio.com if you're not in one of the 90 plus markets that we're in, and you can press the little play icon in the upper right corner or download the app for your Android or mobile device. So, but the question I posed to you last week, and we may have been on here as well, but do you want chaos or do you want it to stay the way it was? And we got some chaos, man. We got a little bit of chaos coming out of the weekend. So what was it? Michigan, no surprise there. I sent you the I sent you the promo that a bar was running in Iowa, free drinks until Iowa scored. So there were some people that bar might be out of business because they did not score at all. So that's I'm sure they were hoping they would get at least a field goal in the first half, but it was not to be. So Michigan beats Iowa. We have Florida State that beat Louisville. We had where Washington beat Oregon, even though Oregon was favored, even though Washington was coming in undefeated. And then what was the other game that I'm talking about? We had Alabama. They beat Georgia because Georgia was number one. So in that and then we had Texas beat, I want to say Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Mm-hmm. So all these things kind of matter in some shape or form because if you paid attention to that. Now we know Florida State, they were down to their third string quarterback because their backup quarterback was out with a concussion. And we know that, Jordan Travis, their starting quarterback, has been out for the last, 3 weeks, I want to say, with a season-ending knee injury. So there was all the speculation, who's going to move where, what's going to happen. And so we get to that selection Sunday, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And I wanted your thoughts on this. Michigan won. What is it? Michigan won. Is it Washington 2? I'm pulling it up right here.
Texas 3, Alabama 4.
Yeah, but Texas 3, Texas 3, Alabama 4. How do you feel about that, man? Because again, I'm just. The Florida State thing is the issue that I have because if you look at, they try to put these little laws in there, these mandates, or giving the committee an out, meaning that what they're trying to do, of course, is trying to create the best entertainment product out there for those playoff games. And so the committee says that, because being down to their third quarterback, even if their third string quarterback wasn't in, the second string quarterback is still, they're not as, let's say, sexy, or they're not as, they don't think that it would be as competitive as if their starting quarterback was there. Therefore, they move Alabama in. And I'm not all that crazy about it because I believe it would be different if they had selected a 2-loss, let's say, Florida State team and said, okay, we'll put you in there because we think that you can do a good job. But they really did earn the right, based upon where they were ranked, I think, to give themselves an opportunity. You look at what TCU just last year, people thought that it was going to be a blowout in the semifinal game. They made it to the championship game. They got blown out. But if I'm not mistaken, when Clemson won, it was either their first or second championship. They beat Alabama, and they beat the doors off Alabama in the championship game, the mighty Alabama. So I want your thoughts on how do you feel about this?
Well, I'll ask you a question to start out with. What if, and this is the flaw of the college system, what if, because the goal of the committee is to put the best 4 teams in the playoffs, right? What if the best 2 teams in the country just happen to be in the same conference, meaning Georgia and Alabama? Georgia is coming off a 29-game winning streak, 2 national championships. They lose 1 game to supposedly one of the best 4 teams in the country, right? And all of a sudden they're not considered one of the best 4 teams in the country. after winning for 2 consecutive years, almost 3 consecutive years, they have a loss. They can't win a national championship. Okay, then you got, then the problem was, here was the bugaboo. If Texas had not beaten Alabama, say if Alabama had lost to somebody else and Texas had 2 losses, they would have got Georgia and Alabama in this Final Four. They would have figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
But because Texas had beaten Alabama, you couldn't have Alabama not get in, and you couldn't have Georgia get in because they just lost to Alabama. So, and then you have Florida State, who loses their quarterback. They have the best, where they won their conference. They're one of the best teams in the country, but without their quarterback, the question is, are they one of the 4 best? And I would say they aren't, but your argument, and a lot of people, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but is that they did what they had to do to get to this point. So they deserve to get in. The system is totally flawed. And here's the kicker, Jay. The fix isn't coming next year just because we're going to get 12 teams in now. It's just going to be a watered down version. And for me, less exciting, because you're going to be just letting everybody in this exclusive party that for a century was only 2 teams, because, and then it went to 4. Now we're going to jump it all the way to 12, and that's going to make everybody happy now. This is going to make everybody more apathetic, in my opinion, as you use the term correctly all the time. It's just going to be like, okay, let's get to the 3rd or 4th round, whatever it is, semifinal round. When we get down to the Final Four, then we'll say, okay, now the college playoffs has begun, because we did a little mock on it earlier this year. Or last week, with looking at the top 12 through 16 who might be getting in, and it's going to be a watered down version. This system has been flawed forever. Well, there's no correct way to do it, or no perfect way to do it. Not correct, no perfect way to do it. This year was chaos, and we're getting, like I said, it's the last year of the Final Four. We'll be moving on to 12, but nobody's going to be happy even with a 12 game playoff.
So you mentioned something that I've heard a couple of people use on either side. So one of the things people say, well, maybe Georgia should even be in there just because of what they've done over the last couple of years, going back to back and all that. And then along the same lines, they'll say, because Alabama has been historically one of the best programs in college football, we know that give them in there, because we know that it'll be competitive either way. So how do you feel about using the historical data as opposed to using the right now data in this particular season, instead of giving somebody the go ahead, or a program the go ahead, because of what they've done historically?
For me, I'm looking at, if the question is the 4 best teams, it's not the 4 best teams over the last year or 2 years or historically. It's the 4 best teams right now. That's my criteria. I come down to who is playing and who has the best team, the best 4 teams right this moment. I do think, like I said, there is a possibility that the best 2 teams in the country it could possibly be in the same conference. So just because one beats the other this Saturday doesn't mean that the other couldn't beat the other next Saturday. So, like I said, it's a totally flawed system. You feel bad for Florida State, because they did everything they were supposed to do to be in that room. I watched it yesterday morning to watch the deflated looks on those young men's faces after everything they did to get to this point. It's still, there's no replacing that. There's, it's bad. I wish we had a different system. And like I said, I don't think going to 12 is going to fix everything. I wish we had a different system in place already, something of an 8-game playoff or something like that, but not 12 next year is going to be watered down. And this year wasn't enough because, obviously we're leaving up quote unquote Power 5 out after they ran the gauntlet and won every one of their games, including their conference championship.
Okay, so
The boy
having
getting
said that,
after it.
so Easy Sports Talk Show podcast. Yeah, that dog. I got a puppy here, y'all. So listen, I got a new puppy. I'm trying to keep him close to me because I don't know what that puppy will do when it's not in my presence. So, but having said that, when we're looking at with Michigan and Alabama, they're going to go in the first round. Alabama going to beat Michigan, right?
I think so.
mean,
I think the team that made out the worst out of all the teams who got in is Michigan. They were hoping Florida State. They had fingers crossed, Florida State, and they said Alabama was like, yeah, oh goodness, all right, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, Michigan,
man.
we're gonna find out. Here's that tale that, man, for years and years, that speed of the South, speed and strength of the South against the slow
Size.
plodding and size of the Big Ten. It's going to be right in our face this time around. And like I said, I would have to think, after watching what Alabama did, and they're like on that crusade, and to prove everybody we haven't fallen off. I know Georgia's won the last two, but look what we just did to them, and here we come, Michigan. I think that's going to be the game of the year, and I think Alabama's a 1.5 point favorite going into this one right now.
Yeah, and then and I want to get back to like the Big Ten. I always forget who from the Pac-12 is going to Big Ten and Big 12, but I want to get into that in just a second. But then, so of course, that means Washington and what is it? Washington and what am I thinking?
Oregon are going over
Washington.
next year.
No. In terms of the other first round,
Washington and
Michigan,
Washington and Texas.
Washington and Texas. So Washington on that one, right? Question mark. What you got?
I don't know. That's going to be a good one. Texas has been playing pretty good. I might have to. Oh gosh, yeah. If I had to put a couple nickels on it, I like the role that Washington's been on, and I think their conference was better. I like the fact that they beat Oregon twice. They were a 9.5 point dog to Oregon after beating him.
Yeah.
Obviously, was at home earlier this year, but undefeated going into the conference championship against Oregon, who everybody had picked, and you beat them neutral site. It's going to be the same thing, neutral site. I got to say, I would have to roll with Washington in this one.
So you mentioned the Big Ten, and my theory is that I surmise that the Michigans and the Ohio States, they're going to be racking up a couple more losses every year because of the talent that comes in from the Pac-12. It's not going to be it's going to be a little bit more muddied up and a little bit more murky. Would you agree with that when we have these, when we get to play college football next year in the Big Ten and Big 12 with these teams that are being added from the Pac-12?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're gonna these new ads, and obviously there's gonna be think about this, an entire conference is just going away, the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So we will no longer have the Pac-12. It's gonna be strange. Some of the rivalries will stay. Obviously, you got Michigan, or you got Oregon and Washington coming over. You got UCLA and USC coming over. Then you got other schools. Arizona State going to the Big 12. So some of the rivalries will still stay. But what's going to be the oddest thing of all, Jay, is on a Saturday, USC going all the way to play Rutgers or something like that. Some of these non-traditionals that are going to be forced on us because now, we got the new conference alignment. It's not going to sit well the first few years. And I don't know how they're going to have it tiered where it's going to be, two different sides of the Big 10, like the Big 10 West, the Big 10 South, or whatever they're going to do. It's going to be odd, and it is going to be a real messed up. And then forget about like a Pac-12 conference championship to see who gets in. Now it's going to come down to a whole bunch of teams in the Big 10, and then obviously with the 12-team playoff, it's just going to be like, we'll be going to the second tier schools to see who gets in, and it's going to seem real strange for a while until we get over it. But it's going to be sad to see some of these big long-term rivalries just go away.
Indeed. So leave me with this. So Easy Sports Talk Show podcast. He's Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. Best and worst from the football weekend. My worst, I already kind of gave it. I felt that Florida State, it just didn't sit right. It just didn't sit in my spirit right. But that was kind of my worst. You're doing all you can, and then somebody says, I don't think you're going to be competitive. But you don't know, man. They thought that Oregon was going to beat Washington, and we see what happened. So you never know. But that's my worst. But what about your best and worst of the football weekend?
My best to all my people back east, I'm sorry, but to watch what the San Francisco 49ers did to the Eagles, that was a dismantling right there. That was wow. That was a beatdown of beatdowns right there. And that was actually for all the people, the Bush to the tush push and all that, and Philly's the best team. I think San Fran quieted a lot of people about all that. That was good to see. 10-1. Everybody's 10-1 isn't the same. And I'm glad to see San Fran do what they did. The other, for my worst, bruh, to have to watch a couple of these games, like Atlanta.
Was it the Patriots? Jets. What was that Patriots one? Wasn't it 6?
Oh, that was 6-0. 6-0. 2 field goals. That was, and so you bench Zappe for some other dude. I mean, then Boyle got benched in the Jets game. I mean, that's just how football is not supposed to be played, bro. And that was sad to watch. Those 2 games, to watch some of the other good, and then come down to those 2 games and have to watch that. It was kind of like, that was bad. So we had some good football and some bad football all across the board.
Maybe that's why Saleh was trying to keep Zach Wilson in so long, because he said, I know what we got. I know what we don't got. Man, y'all just gotta trust me on this, man. You just believe me. That's the best we got to offer, man. I don't know what to tell y'all.
I'll be honest with you. If I'm Rodgers, I'm shutting this stuff down. If I'm looking out there and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting out there behind that offensive line and this scheme, and no way. I would hope that he's smarter than that, and the organization is smarter than that. Now sitting at, what were they, 4-7? Now they're 4-8 now, or whatever it is. That's no way. You can't play him at this time of the year.
Indeed. So he is Ed Smith. I am Javon Adams. We will see y'all on Wednesday. And again, we do this thing on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have our Believe in the Arizona Cardinals podcast. That new episode just dropped this morning. We have our terrestrial radio show every Saturday, except this Saturday, because Ed, we'll get into it more on Wednesday. I think I want to build up to it, but he's going to be going back for a special reunion for that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. So they did it for the 15-year, right? Or the 10-year.
25
for the 10-year. No, we did it for the 10-year, right?
Yeah, we did like a little 10-year reunion years ago. So yeah, I can't believe it's been 25 years, man.
Yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit of what, because I think by then hopefully you'll have the itinerary when we convene for our Wednesday show. But so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then Saturday we do our terrestrial radio show, except for this Saturday because Ed's gonna be off. And sometimes when you leave the controls to me, if it's on podcast form, I might curse it up. I might curse it up all left and right, but we can't do it on terrestrial radio. You got to watch yourself. But so we'll catch y'all next time. And as we always like to say around this time, you can